What would you do if you came home for Thanksgiving to find your 72-year-old mother dying alone in bed while your brother was sipping cocktails on a luxury cruise? I faced exactly that nightmare last November. The house was dark, silent, and Mom was barely breathing on her deathbed, completely abandoned. The only sign of my brother Marcus? A note on the kitchen counter. Mom-in-law invited us on a cruise. You'll take care of Mom. She needs you. But when I rushed to Mom's side, ready to call 911, she opened one eye and whispered something that changed everything. Shall we begin? That's when I discovered the truth. My mother, a retired federal judge, hadn't been dying at all. She'd been documenting 5 years of my brother's neglect, waiting for the perfect moment to expose him. And she was protecting an $8.7 million inheritance he didn't even know existed. I'm Holly Thorne, 38 years old, and over the next 4 days, my dying mother and I orchestrated the most devastating Thanksgiving revenge that left my brother begging for mercy in front of 127 family members. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. The 3-hour drive from Boston to my childhood home in Wellesley had become a monthly ritual I couldn't escape. Every holiday for 15 years, same story. I handle Mom while Marcus handles his image. As I pulled into the driveway that November afternoon, I couldn't help but notice Marcus's BMW was missing. Again. You'd think being the only one who actually showed up would count for something. But at last year's Thanksgiving gathering, while I was cleaning Mom's kitchen after cooking for 12 relatives, Marcus stood in the living room accepting praise from our wealthy cousin, Robert Thorne. Such a devoted son, Robert had said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. Margaret is lucky to have you looking after her. Marcus had actually smiled and replied, Family comes first, Uncle Robert, always has. Meanwhile, Diane, his wife, had cornered me by the dishwasher. Must be nice having so much free time, Holly. No husband, no kids at 38. No wonder you can pop over here whenever. She'd said it loud enough for everyone to hear, and the room had gone quiet for just a moment. That particular kind of silence that meant everyone agreed but was too polite to say so. The irony? Marcus hadn't visited Mom in 3 months. I had the gas receipts, the grocery bills, the pharmacy runs all documented in my phone. But pointing that out would make me seem petty, wouldn't it? The successful lawyer who couldn't find a man, jealous of her younger brother's perfect family. As I grabbed my overnight bag from the trunk, I noticed the mail overflowing from Mom's box. 3 days' worth at least. My stomach tightened. Marcus had promised he'd check on her before leaving. The mailbox should have been my first warning. The second was the darkened windows. Mom always kept the porch light on, even during the day. It was one of her quirks from her judge days, something about maintaining presence. Inside my purse, my phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, another cousin. Marcus says you're being difficult about Thanksgiving again. Really, Holly? I almost laughed. Marcus had been spinning stories since we were kids, but his masterpiece was convincing the entire Thorne family that he was Mom's primary caregiver. At every family gathering, he'd arrive late with elaborate excuses about Mom's medications or Mom's appointments I'd actually taken her to the week before. The worst part? Mom never corrected him. Not once. She'd sit there in her wheelchair, which she only used at family events, another detail nobody seemed to notice, and smile benignly while Marcus played the martyr. Oh, Mom's having a tough week, he'd say, patting her hand. But we're managing, aren't we, Mom? Last Christmas, he'd actually brought a PowerPoint presentation, I kid you not, showing his caregiving schedule, complete with color-coded charts. The family had been impressed. Robert Thorne had even mentioned putting Marcus in charge of the family's charitable foundation. We need more young men like you, he'd said. Men who understand duty. That same Christmas, I'd spent 4 hours in the ER with Mom after she'd had a dizzy spell. Marcus? He was in Vail, posting Instagram photos of his kids skiing. But according to his PowerPoint, he'd been coordinating Mom's care remotely. My key turned in the lock, and the door swung open to darkness. "Mom?" I called out. The house smelled wrong, stale, forgotten. "Mom, it's Holly." The silence that answered made my blood run cold. I found her on the bedroom floor, crumpled beside her antique dresser like a discarded coat. My hands shook as I dropped to my knees, checking for a pulse. It was there, weak but steady. "Mom! Mom, can you hear me?" I reached for my phone, already dialing 911, when something made me pause. Her left eye. It had opened, just barely, and then, did she just wink at me? Before I could process that, I spotted the note on her nightstand. Marcus's handwriting, that lazy scrawl he'd never bothered to improve. "Mom-in-law invited us on a cruise. 10 days in the Caribbean. You'll handle Mom. She needs you. Already cleared it with my office. Thanks, sis. M." The paper was dated 3 days ago. 3 days. "Don't call them, sweetheart," Mom whispered, her voice surprisingly clear for someone who'd supposedly been lying here for days. "Not yet." I stared at her, phone still in hand, the emergency operator's voice tinny and distant. 911, what's your emergency?" "I'm sorry," I said into the phone, my eyes locked on Mom's. "False alarm. My mother just... she's okay." I hung up, my mind racing. Mom pushed herself up on one elbow, her movements careful but not weak. Not weak at all. "Help me to the chair, Holly," she said. And there was something in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Not the fragile widow everyone saw at family gatherings. This was Judge Margaret Thorne, the woman who'd made prosecutors cry in her courtroom. As I helped her up, I noticed the small camera in the corner of her bedroom, its red light blinking steadily. Then another by the door. How had I never seen those before? "We need to talk," Mom said, "and we have 4 days to prepare." Mom settled into her wingback chair with the grace of a queen taking her throne. The transformation was unsettling, from helpless elderly woman to strategic mastermind in seconds. 5 years, she began, pouring herself tea from a thermos I hadn't noticed before. 5 years I've been documenting everything. Every missed appointment, every excuse, every time Marcus took money from my purse thinking I wouldn't notice. She gestured to a laptop on her bed, already open. The screen showed a grid of video feeds from around the house. 312 video clips, Holly. All dated, all time-stamped. Would you like to see my favorite? It's from last month when he told Robert I was too confused to manage my own medications, while simultaneously rifling through my desk looking for bank statements. I sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. "Mom, why didn't you—" "Say something? To whom? The family who thinks Marcus walks on water? The son-in-law of Nancy Morrison, who sits on 3 charity boards with Robert?" She smiled, but it wasn't warm. "No, dear. I needed him to hang himself publicly, and thanks to this cruise, he finally has." She pulled out a folder from beside her chair. Medical records from Mass General, each one stamped and dated. 47 documented instances where Marcus declined to take me to scheduled appointments. His signature on every refusal form. He never read what he was signing, just wanted the paperwork done quickly. "But Mom, this is—" I trailed off, looking at the evidence of years of neglect. "Exactly what I needed," she finished. "You see, Holly, your father's trust has very specific conditions about inheritance. Conditions Marcus never bothered to read, but you, my detail-oriented daughter, probably memorized years ago." $8.7 million, Mom said, watching my face carefully. "That's what your father left in trust with the Massachusetts Judicial Foundation." I nearly dropped the medical records I was holding. 8 point... Mom, what are you talking about? Dad's estate was settled years ago. The public estate, yes, but your father was smarter than that. She pulled out a document bearing the letterhead of Baker McKenzie Law Firm. This trust was separate, with one very specific condition. It can only be inherited by a family member who demonstrates, quote, "continuous familial responsibility for a minimum of 5 consecutive years." Any break in that pattern longer than 14 days disqualifies the heir permanently. My eyes scanned the document, dated 2019, witnessed by 3 senior partners. Marcus doesn't know about this? Marcus knows there's money? He's been hunting for it like a bloodhound. Why do you think he makes such a show at family gatherings? He's performing for an audience of one, me. Or so he thinks. Mom's smile was sharp. The annual family gathering is November 28th this year, 127 confirmed attendees at the Ritz-Carlton. Marcus has already RSVP'd. He never misses a chance to play the devoted son. And you want to? I want you to inherit what you've earned, Holly. But more than that, I want Marcus to understand that actions have consequences. In front of everyone who's enabled his fiction for years. She leaned forward. William Hartley. You remember Judge Hartley? He's been holding the original trust documents. He'll be at the gathering. The weight of what she was proposing settled on my shoulders. Mom, this could destroy him. No, dear, she corrected. Marcus destroyed himself. We're just going to document it. If you've ever been the responsible one while your siblings got all the credit, you'll understand what I felt in that moment. The years of sacrifice, the thankless holidays, the constant criticism, all while Marcus played the golden child. Have you experienced something similar? Let me know in the comments below. And please, hit that subscribe button if you want to hear how this all played out. Mom's phone rang at exactly 6 p.m. She handed it to me with a knowing look. Show time, she mouthed. Holly? Thank God you're there. Marcus's voice was bright, casual, with the sound of steel drums in the background. How's Mom doing? How do you think she's doing, Marcus? Come on, don't be dramatic. She's fine. She has you. A pause, then quieter. She is fine, right? You left her alone for 3 days before I got here. She said she'd be fine. Look, Diane's mother spent a fortune on this cruise. It's the first vacation we've had in 2 years. That was a lie. I'd seen their Cancun photos from June. Besides, you're the one with the flexible lawyer schedule. I've got 2 kids, Holly. Before I could respond, Diane's voice cut in. She must have grabbed the phone. We deserve this vacation, Holly. We work hard, unlike some people who can just work from home whenever they want. You don't have kids. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Diane, Mom could have what? She's fine, isn't she? You're there now. Problem solved. Her tone turned syrupy. We'll be back December 1st. Thanks for understanding. Oh, and Marcus already called Robert to let him know you're handling Thanksgiving prep this year. Bye. The line went dead. Mom had been recording the whole thing on her laptop. Did you catch the part where he said I told him I'd be fine? She asked. I was at my neurologist appointment that day, the one he was supposed to drive me to. I have the appointment card and the Uber receipt. 3 days ago. He'd booked this cruise 3 months ago, according to the confirmation email Mom had somehow gotten from his account. Let him enjoy the water, Mom said. He'll be drowning soon enough. Within 2 hours, the family phone tree had activated. Robert Thorne called first, his voice dripping with disapproval, but not for who I expected. Holly, Marcus tells me you're being difficult about helping your mother. This is really disappointing. I'm sorry, what did Marcus say exactly? That he asked you weeks ago to cover Thanksgiving so he could take his family on a well-deserved vacation, and you're now making a fuss about it. Your mother needs stability, not drama. Before I could respond, he continued, Patricia mentioned you've been jealous of Marcus's family situation. Don't let your personal issues affect Margaret's care. 6 more calls followed in rapid succession. Each relative had gotten a slightly different story, but the theme was consistent. Holly was being selfish. Holly was jealous. Holly was making Marcus's life difficult when all he did was sacrifice for their mother. Cousin Patricia's was the worst. Marcus said you refused to help unless he paid you. That's low, Holly, even for someone in your situation. My situation? Well, 38, single, no children. Marcus says you've been taking out your frustrations on the family. Mom listened to each call on speaker, taking notes in her judicial notebook, the same kind she'd used on the bench. Her face remained neutral, but I saw her hand tighten around her pen when Diane's mother called. "That poor boy," Nancy Morrison simpered, "working so hard to care for Margaret, and his own sister won't give him a single break. I told him he should look into power of attorney. Maybe it's time someone more responsible took charge." After the seventh call, Mom closed her notebook. "They've given us everything we need," she said. "Each one of them is on record supporting Marcus's version of events. When the truth comes out, they'll have to face their own complicity." "The key," Mom said, pulling out a whiteboard she'd hidden behind the dresser, "is to let them think you're weak until the moment you're not." She'd mapped out the entire family gathering like a military operation, the seating chart, the speaking order, even the moment when Marcus traditionally gave his toast about family values, right after the Thorne Foundation updates. Marcus always speaks at 3:15 p.m. exactly. He likes the post-lunch energy when everyone's had wine but isn't tired yet. That's when you'll stand up. "Mom, I'm not sure I can." "You argued before the Massachusetts Supreme Court last year and won. You can handle your brother." She pulled up a video on her laptop. "Watch this. From last year's gathering." The footage showed Marcus at the podium, confident and glowing. "Family means everything to me," he was saying. "Watching Mom age has been difficult, but I'm honored to be the one she relies on. Some people choose career over family." The camera caught him glancing at me. "But I've always known what really matters." The crowd had applauded. Robert Thorne had actually wiped away a tear. "This year," Mom continued, "William Hartley will arrive at 3:00 p.m. with the trust documents. I've asked him to wait in the back until you give the signal. The hotel's AV team has been notified that you'll need the projection system. I told them you're presenting a family tribute video." "You've thought of everything." "I've had 5 years to plan, dear, and 30 years on the bench taught me that evidence without presentation is just paper." She squeezed my hand. "Let them think you're the same pushover they've always known, then show them who you really are." "What if Marcus doesn't come back from the cruise?" Mom smiled. "Oh, he'll come back. I guarantee it." The next morning, I made 3 crucial calls from Mom's study while she rested upstairs, actually organizing her video evidence into a devastating presentation. "Judge Hartley, this is Holly Thorne." "Holly, how's my favorite former clerk, and how's your mother?" "That's actually why I'm calling." I explained what we needed, keeping my voice professional despite my racing heart. His silence lasted 10 seconds. Then, "I've been waiting 5 years for this call. The documents are in my safe. I'll be at the Ritz-Carlton at 3 p.m. sharp." The second call was to Baker McKenzie. The senior partner, James Fitzgerald, confirmed what I'd suspected. "We've been maintaining copies of all trust-related documents as requested by Judge Thorne. Everything is notarized and court admissible. I'm emailing you the full portfolio now. Check your secure inbox." The email contained 43 pages of meticulously documented evidence, every signature authenticated, every date verified. Marcus's name appeared nowhere as a beneficiary unless he met the conditions he'd violated 47 times. The third call was to Mass General's Records Department. "Ms. Thorne, we have the complete file your mother requested, 5 years of appointment records, all showing Mr. Marcus Thorne as the declining party for transport and care. Each one is stamped and verified by our legal department." Mom appeared in the doorway as I hung up. "The cloud backup is complete. 312 videos, all uploaded to a private server with redundant backups. Even if Marcus somehow found out and tried to delete the local files, we're protected." "You know," I said, looking at the mountain of evidence, "most people would call this overkill. Most people haven't spent 30 years watching guilty people walk free because someone forgot to document one crucial detail. When you strike at a king, dear, you'd better not miss." Marcus called again that evening, his tone noticeably different. The background noise was quieter. He'd found somewhere private. "Holly, I need you to be straight with me. Has Mom said anything unusual?" "Unusual how?" "Just, has she mentioned anything about Dad? About money?" So he was fishing. Mom's barely conscious half the time, Marcus. You'd know that if you were here. Don't start. Look, I know there's something. Dad was too smart to leave everything in the basic estate. I've been going through old papers, and there are references to a second trust. And you're calling me about this from your cruise because I need to know if Mom said anything. Diane thinks... He caught himself. It doesn't matter what Diane thinks. Just... Has Mom mentioned any lawyers visiting? Any documents? I glanced at Mom, who was listening on speaker. She nodded slowly. No lawyers, Marcus. Though Judge Hartley called to check on her, said he might stop by the family gathering to pay his respects. The silence on Marcus's end stretched uncomfortably long. Hartley. Right. He and Dad were close. Marcus, is everything okay? You sound worried. Just keep an eye on things, okay? And Holly? Don't sign anything. Don't let Mom sign anything. Not until I get back. I thought you trusted me to handle everything. I do. Diane wants to make sure everything is properly managed. You understand? After he hung up, Mom pulled up another video on her laptop. It was from 2 years ago. Marcus, in her study, photographing pages from her personal files while she was supposedly napping. He's been hunting for years, she said. Let him wonder what we know. Desperate people make mistakes. November 26th, 2 days before the gathering, Marcus burst through Mom's front door like a man on fire. He'd cut his cruise short by 4 days. Mom! He rushed past me in the hallway, arms full of expensive flowers and a Hermes scarf. I'm so sorry I left you. The performance was Oscar-worthy. He knelt beside her chair, tears actually forming in his eyes. When Holly told me how sick you were, I immediately booked a flight home. Diane understood. She said family comes first. Mom played her part perfectly, letting her hand shake as she reached for him. Marcus, you came back. Of course I did. I should never have left. He shot me a look over Mom's head. Holly should have called me sooner. Thank God I decided to check in. Within an hour, he'd posted on Facebook. Rushed home from vacation to be with Mom. Some things matter more than beaches and sunshine. Family is everything. Blessed, #family first. The comments poured in immediately. Robert Thorne. This is why you're such an inspiration, Marcus. Patricia. Your mother is lucky to have you. Nancy Morrison. My daughter married the best man. What the commenters didn't see was Marcus rifling through Mom's desk while she napped, or him checking her phone for recent calls. They didn't see him corner me in the kitchen an hour later. Did anyone visit while I was gone? Any lawyers? Any paperwork? Marcus, you literally just posted about rushing home to care for Mom, and you're interrogating me about lawyers? I'm just making sure everything is in order, for Mom's sake. He'd brought a suitcase full of props, medical supplies he'd never use, a blood pressure cuff still in its packaging, even a wheelchair he'd clearly just purchased. The receipts were still in the bag. For the gathering, he explained. Mom needs to look properly cared for. November 28th arrived crisp and bright. The Ritz-Carlton's ballroom gleamed with crystal chandeliers and old money confidence. 127 members of the extended Thorne family filled the space, their conversations a symphony of privilege and presumption. Marcus had positioned Mom's wheelchair, the one she didn't need, at the head table, where everyone could see him tenderly adjusting her blanket every few minutes. He'd even hired a private nurse for the day, who stood uselessly nearby while he made a show of checking Mom's vitals. At exactly 3:15 p.m., Robert Thorne called Marcus to the podium for his traditional toast. Marcus rose slowly, making sure everyone noticed how he carefully tucked Mom's blanket before leaving her side. Family, he began, his voice catching with practiced emotion, is not just about blood. It's about showing up. It's about sacrifice. He paused, letting his eyes sweep the room. For the past 5 years, I've had the honor of being my mother's primary caregiver. It hasn't been easy. There have been sleepless nights, missed opportunities, vacations cut short. He glanced at me. While some chase career ambitions, I've chosen a different path, a harder path. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Nancy Morrison dabbed at her eyes. Just this week, Marcus continued, I cut short a long-planned cruise because Mom needed me. Because that's what you do for family. You show up, you sacrifice, you put their needs before your own. The applause started slowly, building to enthusiasm. Someone shouted, "Hear, hear!" Marcus basked in it, his smile humble but satisfied. I don't do it for recognition. I do it because it's right. Because someday, I hope my children will remember that their father understood what truly mattered. That's when I stood up, my laptop under my arm. I'd like to add something to Marcus's beautiful speech. Marcus's smile flickered but held. Of course, Holly, though I wasn't aware you'd prepared anything. I walked toward the podium, and he leaned into the microphone before I could reach it. My sister Holly has had a difficult time accepting my role as Mom's caregiver. As many of you know, she's 38, unmarried, no children. Sometimes people in that situation struggle with family dynamics. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd. Diane stood up from her seat, adding, Holly's always been career-focused. We don't judge her for it, but it does mean she doesn't understand the sacrifices parents make. That's right, Marcus continued, emboldened. While I've been bathing Mom, managing her medications, driving her to appointments, Holly appears once a month for a few hours. But we don't hold it against her. Not everyone is built for caregiving. Robert Thorne nodded approvingly. Marcus, your grace under pressure is admirable. Thank you, Uncle. Marcus's voice grew softer, more martyred. It's been especially hard this week. I had to abandon a cruise that Diane's mother generously gifted us, our first vacation in years, because Holly couldn't handle Mom alone for a few days. But that's what real family does. We show up, even when others won't. The nurse he'd hired looked confused, probably wondering why she'd been paid to stand around doing nothing while Marcus performed for the crowd. Holly, Marcus said, turning to me with false concern, maybe you should sit down. You look overwhelmed. I know public speaking isn't your strong suit. I reached the podium, setting my laptop on the side table. The AV team, as promised, had the projection screen ready. You're right, Marcus, I said calmly into the microphone. I should probably let the evidence speak for itself. This was it. The moment I'd been pushed too far. Standing in that ballroom with 127 relatives watching, being painted as the selfish sister while Marcus played saint. Every responsible family member knows this feeling. The gaslighting, the public humiliation, the rewritten history. If you've been there, drop a comment, and remember to subscribe, because what happened next changed our family forever. I have something to share about caregiving, I said, connecting my laptop to the projection system. The screen behind me flickered to life. About what it really looks like versus what people claim it looks like. Marcus's face had gone pale. Holly, this isn't the time. When is the time, Marcus? When you're on another cruise. I clicked to the first slide, a spreadsheet. This is 5 years of Mom's medical appointments, 412 scheduled visits to Mass General. Would anyone like to guess how many Marcus attended? The room had gone silent. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. 7, I continued. He attended 7, and those were all in the first month of 2020, when he was trying to get Mom to add him to her main bank account. This is ridiculous. Marcus started toward me, but stopped when Judge William Hartley entered through the ballroom's main doors, a leather portfolio under his arm. Judge Hartley, I announced. Perfect timing. I was just about to show some video evidence. Marcus's eyes darted between me and Hartley. What videos? Mom, tell them this is insane. Mom, who'd been playing frail all afternoon, straightened in her wheelchair. The blanket fell away, revealing a sharp business suit instead of the housecoat everyone expected. Actually, Marcus, Mom said, her voice carrying the authority of 3 decades on the bench, I think it's time everyone saw the truth. The screen changed to a grid of video feeds. These are from security cameras I installed in my home 5 years ago, I explained. After Marcus started telling everyone he was my primary caregiver while systematically neglecting me. Diane stood up, her face flushed. This is entrapment. You can't record people without their knowledge. Massachusetts is a two-party consent state for audio, I replied calmly. But these are video only, from my mother's own home, completely legal. Judge Hartley can confirm. The first video filled the screen. Date stamp, March 15, 2021, 3:47 p.m. Mom was on the floor by the stairs, calling for help. Marcus walked past her, stepped over her extended arm, and grabbed a beer from the kitchen. The audio was muted, but you could see Mom's mouth forming his name. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Robert Thorne stood up, his face red. What is this? This, I said, is Marcus choosing a football game over helping his mother who had fallen. I clicked to the next video. October 8th, 2021. Mom begging Marcus to take her to her cardiology appointment. His response? The video showed Marcus on his phone, waving Mom away dismissively. The timestamp showed he stayed another hour before leaving, without her. January 15th, 2022. Click. Mom's medication sitting on the counter for 3 days while Marcus posted Facebook photos from a ski trip. April 3rd, 2022. Click. Marcus removing cash from Mom's purse while she slept. Stop, Marcus shouted. These are taken out of context. Context? I pulled up a document. Here's context. 47 signed refusal forms where you declined to provide transportation for Mom's medical care. Your signature on every one. The crowd was murmuring now, voices rising. Nancy Morrison had sat down heavily, her face white. Diane was backing toward the exit. September 10th, 2023. I continued relentlessly. The day you told everyone you spent 8 hours caring for Mom. The video showed Marcus in Mom's house for exactly 12 minutes, long enough to take a selfie with her for Instagram and raid her refrigerator. Patricia gasped. But you said you posted that you were there all day. He lied, Mom said simply from her wheelchair. He's been lying for 5 years, and you all believed him over Holly, who actually showed up. Judge Hartley stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. If I may address the family. He opened his portfolio, removing a sealed document. I've been the executor of Judge Thomas Thorne's secondary trust for 5 years. The terms were specific. The beneficiary must demonstrate continuous familial responsibility for a minimum of 5 consecutive years. Any gap longer than 14 days results in permanent disqualification. Marcus lunged forward. What trust? What are you talking about? The trust your father established through the Massachusetts Judicial Foundation, Hartley continued, worth approximately $8.7 million. The room erupted. Marcus's face went from red to white to green in seconds. As documented here, Hartley held up a thick folder. Marcus Thorne has been absent from his mother's care for a cumulative 1,247 days over the past 5 years. He is hereby disqualified from any claim to the trust. This is fraud, Marcus screamed. Holly manipulated Mom. She doctored those videos. The videos are authenticated by 3 separate digital forensics experts, I said, pulling up the certification documents. Every timestamp verified, every frame validated. Baker McKenzie has copies of everything. Mom stood up from her wheelchair, stood up completely on her own, and walked to the podium. The collective gasp from the room was audible. I've been documenting everything, she said clearly. Every lie, every absence, every stolen dollar. Holly has been my sole caregiver for 15 years, not 5. She just never asked for credit. Robert Thorne found his voice. Margaret, surely there's been some misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, Mom said coldly, was you all believing that the son who showed up for photos was more valuable than the daughter who showed up for everything else. Marcus collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. 8.7 million. This is fake! Marcus shot up from his chair, wild-eyed and desperate. Holly edited these videos. She's been planning this. He spun toward the crowd. You all know me. You know how much I've sacrificed. His voice cracked. Mom, please, tell them the truth. Mom's response was to pull out her phone and project a text exchange on the screen. From Marcus, 3 days ago. Old lady probably doesn't have long. Make sure we're in the will before she croaks. The room went silent. That's not... I didn't... Marcus turned to Diane for support, but her face had transformed from shock to rage. 8.7 million? Diane's voice was deadly quiet. You told me she had maybe 100,000 in savings. You said we were doing our duty. Baby, please. Don't baby me. Diane yanked out her own phone. I have recordings too, Marcus. All those times you practiced your grieving son speech for when she died. All those times you calculated how much we could get for her house. She turned to the crowd. He made me rehearse crying. He said we needed to look devastated at the funeral to make sure Holly didn't contest anything. Judge Hartley cleared his throat. I should also mention that attempting to defraud an elderly person in Massachusetts carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison. These videos would certainly qualify as evidence. Marcus's legs gave out. He sank to the floor, looking up at Mom with genuine tears now. Mama, please. I'm your son. Your only son. Mom walked over to him, each step measured and deliberate. No, Marcus. You're the son who saw me as an ATM. Holly is the child who saw me as her mother. Diane's transformation was swift and vicious. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages with the efficiency of a prosecutor. You want to see who Marcus really is? She connected her phone to the projection system with practiced ease. Let me show you our text messages from 2 years ago. The screen filled with Marcus's words. The old lady's loaded. Mom doesn't even know about Dad's other accounts. Once she's gone, we're set for life. Another text. Keep being nice to her at family things. Make Holly look bad. The worse Holly looks, the better we look. And another. Told Robert that Holly's been stealing from Mom. He bought it completely. Robert Thorne's face went purple. You told me Holly was embezzling? He tells everyone stories, Diane continued, her voice rising. Last Christmas, while Holly was at the hospital with Margaret for 6 hours, Marcus was at a casino. He lost $3,000 and told me it was fine because Mom's money will cover it soon. She pulled up an audio file. This is from last month. Marcus's voice filled the ballroom. I figure the old bat has maybe 6 months left. We just need to keep Holly away and make sure we're the only ones there when she updates the will. I've already got Diane practicing her grieving daughter-in-law act. Nancy Morrison stood up, shaking. Diane, you knew about this? I found out the truth 3 weeks ago. Diane lied smoothly. I've been documenting everything since then. I was going to come forward today anyway. She wasn't, of course. But Diane had always been a survivor, and she knew a sinking ship when she saw one. I want a divorce, she announced, and I'll be seeking full custody based on Marcus's demonstrated lack of moral character. The family's reversal was swift and merciless. Robert Thorne, who'd been Marcus's biggest supporter, stood up with the authority of a man who controlled multiple trust funds. Marcus Thorne, he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom, you are hereby removed from the Thorne Family Foundation Board, effective immediately. Uncle Robert, please. You lied to me. You made me complicit in your abuse of Margaret. Robert's voice shook with rage. I defended you. I criticized Holly based on your lies. This is unconscionable. Patricia joined in. You told me Holly was jealous of your family, that she was trying to turn your mother against you. She was. She did. Marcus gestured wildly at me. This is all her manipulation. The only manipulation, said Cousin James, a Boston attorney, was yours. And frankly, I'm going to recommend the family pursue charges for elder abuse and fraud. One by one, board members who'd shaken Marcus's hand an hour ago now turned their backs. The symbolic gesture wasn't lost on anyone. Nancy Morrison, Diane's mother, approached Marcus with cold fury. You used my daughter. You used my family's name. We welcomed you into our circle and this is how you repay us? Nancy, You're done in Boston society, Marcus. I'll make sure of it. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling the country club right now to revoke your membership. It's under my sponsorship, after all. The dominoes kept falling. 6 different family members announced they were removing Marcus from their wills. The Thorne Foundation's lawyer stated he'd be investigating whether Marcus had misused any foundation funds. Even the hired nurse looked disgusted. Could someone escort Mr. Thorne out? Robert called to security. He's no longer welcome at family events. Over the next 24 hours, my phone became a battlefield of Marcus's desperation. 50 missed calls, 67 text messages, each one more pathetic than the last. Holly, please pick up. We're family. I have children. You're going to make your nephew and niece homeless? It was all Diane's idea. She pushed me into it. Mom poisoned you against me. I'll pay you back everything, with interest. Holly, I'm begging you, my life is falling apart. You've destroyed me. Are you happy now? Please, I'm your brother. Blood is thicker than water. The voicemails were worse. In one, he was sobbing. In another, screaming. By the 10th message, he'd cycled through denial, anger, bargaining, and depression, but never quite reached acceptance. Mom listened to one of them with me. Marcus's voice was broken, desperate. Mama, please. I made mistakes, but I'm your son, your only son. Holly's turned you against me. This isn't you. This is her. Please, Mama, I'll do better. I'll visit every day. I'll quit my job to take care of you. Just please don't do this to me. Notice, Mom said quietly, how it's still all about him. Not once has he actually apologized for neglecting me. Not once has he acknowledged what Holly has done. It's all about what's being done to him. She was right. In 50 messages, Marcus never once said, I'm sorry for abandoning you, or, thank you, Holly, for taking care of Mom. It was all about his losses, his pain, his children's futures. The last text came at 3 a.m. You've won. Congratulations. I hope you're happy destroying your own brother. I hope that money keeps you warm at night. I blocked his number after that. The financial dominoes fell faster than even I had anticipated. Within a week, Marcus's carefully constructed life imploded completely. His employer, Boston Financial Services, called him in for a meeting after several clients saw the family gathering footage. Someone had recorded it and it went viral on LinkedIn with the caption, "When the devoted son gets exposed." They gave him 2 options: resign immediately or be fired for reputational damage to the firm. He chose resignation, which meant no severance package. Diane filed for divorce on Monday, citing financial fraud and moral turpitude. Her lawyer, one of Nancy Morrison's friends, was ruthless. The preliminary settlement demanded the house, both cars, and $3,500 monthly in combined alimony and child support. He claimed assets he didn't have, Diane told me in a brief phone call. He took loans against future inheritance he was never going to get. We're $400,000 in debt, Holly. Credit cards, personal loans, even a second mortgage he forged my signature on. The house in Brookline went on the market within 2 weeks, priced to sell quickly because Marcus needed the money for legal fees. The country club membership Nancy Morrison had revoked would have been worth $50,000 if sold properly. Instead, it was gone with no compensation. His BMW was repossessed when it turned out he'd been hiding 3 months of missed payments. The boat he'd bought last summer, telling everyone Mom had given him the money, was seized by the marina for unpaid dock fees. By December 15th, Marcus Thorne, who'd spent 5 years playing the devoted son and successful family man, was living in a studio apartment in Revere, working part-time at a car rental agency, and begging former colleagues for references they wouldn't provide. Reputation in Boston is everything, Robert Thorne had said. He was right. 3 weeks after the gathering, I was formally elected to the Thorne Family Foundation board, unanimously, with 1 abstention. Marcus's empty seat. Holly, Robert Thorne said after the vote, I owe you an apology. We all do. We saw what we wanted to see, believed what was easier to believe. You deserved better from this family. The apology was public, recorded in the minutes, and accompanied by something even more meaningful: respect. Mom and I had grown closer than ever. Without the performance of frailty, she was vibrant again, teaching seminars at Harvard Law, writing her memoirs, even taking a weekly spin class. We had lunch every Tuesday, dinner every Sunday, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. You know what the best part is? Mom said one evening, pouring us wine in her study. I don't have to pretend anymore. Not to be weaker than I am, not to be fooled by Marcus, not to doubt what I saw with my own eyes. The trust money was transferred in January. 8.7 million, managed responsibly, would fund not just my future, but a new foundation Mom and I created together. The Invisible Caregivers Fund, providing respite and support for family members who actually show up. At the first board meeting I attended, Patricia pulled me aside. Holly, I'm ashamed of how I treated you. You were doing everything right, and we punished you for it. You didn't know, I said. But we should have. We should have looked closer, asked questions, noticed who was really there. She paused. My mother is getting older. I've been thinking about what real caregiving looks like, thanks to you. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was simply Holly Thorne, respected for exactly who I'd always been. Marcus's letter arrived in February, 2 months after the gathering. 3 pages, handwritten on legal pad paper. He couldn't even afford proper stationery anymore. Dear Holly, it began, I never realized what you were doing all those years. But even his apology was polluted with self-pity. I've lost everything, appeared 4 times. My children won't speak to me, appeared twice. The phrase, I'm sorry, appeared once, buried in the middle of page 2, immediately followed by, but you have to understand the pressure I was under. Diane had been thorough in the divorce. The kids, teenagers now, had chosen to live with her full-time after seeing the videos. Marcus got supervised visitation every other weekend, contingent on completing court-mandated therapy for narcissistic personality traits with antisocial features. His therapist, he wrote, was helping him understand his patterns. But even that felt performative, like he was saying what he thought would get him back into the family's good graces, and more importantly, the family's money. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Marcus, who'd spent 5 years performing the role of devoted son for an audience, was now genuinely alone. No audience, no applause, no one to fool. His Instagram account, once filled with carefully staged family photos, had been dormant since November. His last post, "Family is everything," had been flooded with comments after the video went viral, none of them kind. He was working retail now at an electronics store in Medford. One of Mom's friends had seen him there, wearing the blue polo shirt and name tag, helping customers with phone plans. He'd lost weight, she said, looked older, tired. He got exactly what he gave, Mom said when I showed her the letter. Nothing. In March, Marcus made one last attempt at reconciliation, showing up at Mom's house unannounced. I was there, thankfully, when the doorbell rang. I need to see Mom, he said, looking gaunt and desperate. Please, Holly. I didn't move from the doorway. Here are the conditions, Marcus, non-negotiable. I pulled out my phone, reading from the notes I'd prepared months ago, knowing this day would come. 1. You will never ask for money. Not from me, not from Mom, not through any third party. Any request for financial assistance ends all contact permanently. 2. You may see Mom once a month, for 1 hour, supervised by me or a professional caregiver. You'll schedule these visits 2 weeks in advance. 1 no-show or late arrival, and the visits end. 3. You'll provide proof of ongoing therapy every month. Not a note saying you went, actual documentation of consistent attendance and participation. Marcus's face cycled through emotions: anger, hurt, desperation, and finally, something like resignation. Those are harsh, Holly. Those are boundaries, Marcus. something I should have set 15 years ago. What if I can't afford therapy? There are free clinics. Your therapist can provide resources. I kept my voice steady, professional. These aren't punishments, Marcus. They're protections. For Mom, for me, and honestly, for you too. He stood there for a long moment, looking past me into the house where he'd grown up, where he'd taken so much and given so little. Can I at least see her today? Just for a few minutes? No, follow the process. Schedule a visit. Show up on time. Bring your therapy documentation. I started to close the door. The boundaries start now, Marcus. Respect them, or lose access entirely. That evening, Mom and I sat in her garden, watching the spring bulbs she'd planted finally bloom. She'd been quiet since Marcus's visit, and I could tell she was working through something. I failed him, she said finally. I created this monster. Mom, no! Let me finish. She turned to me, her judge's eyes clear and direct. I enabled Marcus for years. Every time he lied, I stayed quiet. Every time he took credit for your work, I let it happen. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really, I was choosing the easy path. She pulled out a document from her folder. She always had a folder nearby these days. I've established a scholarship fund, the Margaret Thorne Caregivers Education Fund, full rides for children of family caregivers who've sacrificed their own education opportunities. Mom, that's wonderful. It's necessary. How many daughters like you are out there, Holly? How many sons, for that matter? Invisible, overworked, underappreciated, watching their siblings get praised for showing up once a year? She signed the document with her judicial pen. $2 million to start. I won't fail another, Holly. The fund would launch publicly next month, she explained. Part of the application would require documenting caregiving hours. Real documentation, not Facebook posts or staged photos. Marcus taught me something valuable, she continued. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's worst self. I spent so many years avoiding conflict that I forgot justice requires confrontation. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You taught me something too, that showing up isn't just about being present. It's about being present when it's hard, when there's no audience, when there's no reward except knowing you did the right thing. Diane's attempt to control the narrative backfired spectacularly. In April, she posted a lengthy Facebook essay titled "Surviving a Narcissist: My Story," trying to paint herself as Marcus's victim. Within hours, someone leaked the screenshots from the family gathering, the ones showing her texts encouraging Marcus to milk the old lady and make sure Holly gets nothing. The post went viral, but not in the way Diane intended. 47,000 shares in 3 days. The comments section became a masterclass in internet justice. So you knew he was neglecting his mother and said nothing? You literally coached him on how to cry at her future funeral. Seek help. This woman rehearsed grief. The Boston Globe picked up the story. Brookline divorce drama exposes elder abuse scheme. Diane's photo was featured prominently, right next to the screenshot of her saying, "Old people die, might as well benefit." The custody battle that followed was swift and brutal. The judge, who happened to know Mom from her bench days, reviewed the evidence with particular interest. Diane got weekends only, supervised for the first 6 months. Her job at a high-end real estate firm? Gone within a week of the article. Reputational concerns, they said. She was now working as a receptionist at a dental office in Quincy, her Mercedes traded for a Honda Civic, her Newberry Street shopping days a distant memory. Nancy Morrison, her own mother, publicly distanced herself. "I'm deeply disappointed in my daughter's choices," she told the Globe. "The Morrison family does not condone elder abuse in any form." The internet, as Mom had noted while scrolling through the comments, doesn't forget. Every job interview, every new relationship, every attempt to rebuild her image would be haunted by those screenshots, archived forever in the digital amber of public shame. Thanksgiving 2025 arrived with crisp November air and a completely different energy. 73 family members gathered at the Ritz-Carlton, notably fewer than the previous year, but the quality of company had vastly improved. I stood at the same podium where everything had changed a year ago. This time, no one questioned my right to be there. Family, I began, raising my glass, isn't about blood or obligation or performance. It's about showing up when the cameras aren't rolling, when there's no applause, when the only witness is your own conscience. The room was warm with genuine appreciation, not the performed emotion of previous years. Robert Thorne had personally apologized to me 3 separate times. Patricia now called weekly, actually listening instead of judging. This year, the Thorne Foundation is launching a new tradition, I continued. Instead of celebrating those who claim to sacrifice, we're honoring those who actually do. The caregivers, the supporters, the ones who show up without Instagram posts or Facebook announcements. Mom stood beside me, radiant in her strength. To those who show up, she said, raising her own glass, not those who show off. The toast rippled through the room. Marcus's name wasn't mentioned once. He'd become the family ghost, present only as a cautionary tale whispered to younger members about the danger of performance over presence. He wasn't invited, of course. His monthly visits with Mom had lasted exactly 2 sessions before he'd violated the boundaries, asking her to loan him money for rent. That was 6 months ago. We hadn't heard from him since. As the gathering continued, I realized something profound. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not without history, but honest, real, present. The invisible daughter had become the visible matriarch, not through manipulation or performance, but simply by being exactly who she'd always been. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to stand up to family manipulation. Drop a comment about your own experience with family boundaries. I read every single one. Remember, blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. What boundaries have you had to set? Let's discuss below.